Hi again guys, and thank you for joining me. So this week I want to do something a little bit different. This last weekend I participated in my very first market stall and I thought maybe you'd like to hear about how that day went and some of the do's and don'ts that I sort of figured out along the day. I was really excited and terrified to be a part of this event. I invested a fair bit of money that I really don't have in setting up for this market stall, when it comes down to things like fees and insurance and the costs that really add up. And there was a very real possibility that I wouldn't see a single cent of it back. Luckily, I live in an area that has a really great community of artists and artisans, and this whole community event was sort of set up about showcasing this part of the community. So I figured if I was willing to throw away a little bit of money, then I could set up this market stall as a little bit of a gallery to set up and show off my colour pencil work to people who haven't seen it up close before. So I packed up some of my favourite original pieces alongside a few cheaper pieces that I was willing to sell at a lower price to maybe make it worthwhile. A few of my pastel drawings and a bunch of my prints, and I just dove straight in.
Oh man, it's way too early, but we're all packed up and ready to go.
That 5 a.m. start. I am not a morning person by any stretch of the imagination, so getting up at that hour and getting ready was really quite hard for me. And it was freezing. Of course, this had to be the first cold snap of the season, and I was not prepared for it. I was really regretting not taking more jackets with me at the start of the day. Luckily, there was a coffee cart on site, and he had some wonderful hot drinks and some free cookies, and that really helped warm me up and get me going for the day. I did have a couple of hiccups with my setup. I had made up a whole bunch of price tags for my artwork, and somewhere in the journey I lost them. I don't know if they ended up in the car or fell on the ground somewhere, but I didn't have any way to sort of make a replacement on the run, so that was a little bit of an oversight. And of course this event was held over a freshly mown field of grass, which was gorgeous and smelt wonderful, but it was very heavy with that morning dew. And of course all of those wet little bits of grass got stuck all over my tables, and I hadn't brought any way to clean that up. So that's lesson number 2. Luckily, I only had a very simple setup with me, which I had practiced putting up the night before. So it only took me about an hour to get everything set up, and I was able to have a little wander around and speak to some of the other stall holders. When the sun came up and the day warmed up a little bit, the fun really started to begin. People started to show up and have a look around the other tents. Now at first, most of the visitors to my tent were other market stall holders and artists from around the region who were getting in early to have a quick look. This was a wonderful opportunity for me to talk to some people about my techniques and about the medium that I was using and comparing notes. I got a chance to speak to some acrylic painters and some oil painters and some charcoal artists. I got to speak to some abstract artists and a digital artist, and we had a really good chance to talk about techniques and supplies and how these things all work together. By this point I was already considering this day a success because I'd had a chance to meet and talk to all of these people, and I'd got a chance to show off my colour pencil artwork to people who had never seen it before. I was so happy when one of these other artists actually placed a deposit on my glow piece, and he picked that one up the next day. I'm a little sad to see that one go because honestly it is one of my favourites, but I do believe that it's gone to a very loving home. As the day moved on to about midday, I noticed the crowd of people starting to change. Gone were the artists, and the more casual, passive sort of shoppers were coming by. People who weren't necessarily interested in the techniques or the brand of pencil that I'd used or where I'd bought it. The people that were coming in at this point were much more interested in the images that I'd created, why I'd chosen to draw such a bird, why I'd chosen to draw that glass. They were much more interested in the image and less interested in the technique, which meant that I got to have a whole nother set of conversations with people about my artwork. The market ran until about 3 o'clock, and by the end of the day, not only had I sold my glow piece, but I'd managed to sell quite a number of my pastel pieces and quite a few of my prints, which was really awesome. At the end of the day, I had not lost money, I had actually made some. Yay! While overall I did consider this a very successful day, I was keeping notes throughout the day with things that I had done right and things that I could have done better. Now, the first thing that I did right was the money side of things. I kept all of my prices to $5 intervals, and I made sure that I had a decent amount of float money in the morning so I could give people some change. Lots of 5s and 10s and $20 notes. Of course, my first couple of customers wanted to give me a $50 note, and if I hadn't had that small change with me, then I would have been screwed. The other thing that I think I did really well was investing in one of these little card readers. Now this is just a little device that allows me to take credit card payments from my phone, which was fantastic. I definitely would have lost sales if I hadn't have had this little device, especially for the more expensive purchases. People don't generally carry large amounts of cash when it comes to market stalls, so this was a godsend. It only cost me about $20. The fees are pretty low, especially considering I don't do this often enough to invest in a FPOS device or something from the bank. So this really was a good investment. Another thing that I really think I did right was to make sure that I was watching and engaging with the people who walked inside the tent. At the start of the day, I was tempted to take some art supplies with me so I could sort of be working in the background during the dull moments, or just sort of getting people's interest. But my years and years and years and years of crushing retail experience have taught me to really look out for the moment where a customer sort of goes from looking at something to thinking about they might actually go through with a purchase. And if I'd had my head buried in my artwork sort of working away, I might have missed that little signal where people start looking around for the shopkeeper. Now, in a marketplace like that, people can be really fleeting, especially with like an impulse purchase, like a really cheap little print. And I think if I hadn't have been able to jump on them at that time, then their interest would have been piqued by the next tent, and I may have lost quite a few sales that way. So by being engaged and present with these people, I was really able to reel in those potential customers a little bit better. Another thing that I really did right, and don't tell my husband because this was totally his idea and I actually kind of fought him on it, but I took a couple of examples of pet portraits and human portraits that I've done in the past. Now these pieces weren't to be put up for sale, they were just examples for things that I could do for potential commission work. They were working as an advertisement for that, and having those pieces on the wall really did open up a lot of dialogue with customers for things that they may be interested in actually paying for in the future. They'd already seen the prices of the other work that I had, and seeing the potential for a commission piece, many of these people have followed through with emails, and I do have a list of phone numbers here. So not only have I made money on the day while I was at the market, but I have a list of potential work that can come from it. Okay, for something that I got right and wrong, I set up all of my artwork along the back wall of the tent. Now this worked in one way because the customers that came in had to step inside the tent and get away from the chaos of the rest of the market. And that meant I had a really good opportunity to have a good personal conversation with them about the artwork. I was able to talk to them about what I'd used, what I was inspired by, and that personal connection did lead to quite a few sales. But having everything at the back of that tent also meant that I missed out on quite a few casual passers-by. I did see quite a few examples where a whole family group would walk past my tent and there'd be one member who would see something and their eyes would light up and you'd see that they would like to take a closer look. But as the rest of the family sort of walked on, they just kind of followed and they didn't get a chance to sort of take a closer look, which I think if I'd had some of those cheaper prints up front and up in sort of available for people who were just passing by, I think it would have made more of those casual sales in that way. So that's definitely something to keep in mind for next time. Another thing I got wrong was I actually didn't have any help with me on the day. Now, my husband did come in early in the morning and he helped me set up the tent and the tables, but he had his own work to do, so he had to leave, and essentially I was on my own from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Now, that wouldn't have been so bad. There wasn't any hard work to do. It was basically just talking to people, but there were certain practical concerns that came up in that there was nobody to relieve me if I needed to take a quick 5-minute toilet break or buy some food. I was surrounded by festival food that smelt fantastic and I couldn't get up and go grab some until 3 o'clock. I was so hungry. Next time I'll definitely be bringing a friend or somebody to just sort of mind the area so I can go and take those quick 5-minute breaks. Okay, so now we come to the one thing that I stuffed up completely. I didn't take any carry bags. I didn't take any way for people to transport this artwork home. I didn't even think of it. not a bag, not even a plastic bag, not even a bubble wrap. People were buying glass framed works and I didn't have any way to sort of package it up for them. I have my prints in some lovely packaging. They come in a nice hard backing board and they're all nicely wrapped. But when it came to the bigger pieces, I didn't have anything. Oh God, I'm cringing so badly. Oh, how embarrassing. These people would grab the artwork and they'd hand it to me with the money. And they were expecting me to package it and I didn't have anything and I just had to hand it back to them. Oh God. I feel like a complete fool. Luckily, when it came to some of the larger pieces, I was able to deliver them personally the next day, but that is definitely number one on my list of things to fix for next time. So that's my first market experience. Not only did I not lose money, but I made some. I had so much fun talking to people about my artwork and meeting other artists. It was such a wonderful day and I'd absolutely do it again, especially for those larger community events. I definitely think there's a lot of trial and error when it comes to setting up something like this, and I'll definitely be making more and more notes each time I do one of these events and trying to tweak things until I can get the best approach. Next week, I'm going to be back with another colour pencil speed drawing, but I hope you've enjoyed this and found it helpful. Please leave me a like or a comment to tell me what you think, and if you'd like to see some more of my work, why not hit that subscribe button? Thanks for watching, guys.